Good afternoon, everyone. We call this meeting to order at 5:31 p.m. Dr.
All
Herbert?
right. Yeah, let's go on ahead and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. And now to our land acknowledgement. Arizona is home to 22 tribal nations. Osborne School District is situated on the homelands of the Akimel O'odham and Pi'ipash people. Osborne School District recognizes the original inhabitants of these lands and recognizes they still reside throughout the city of Phoenix. We recognize their wisdom, impact, and generosity towards us. Osborne School District is surrounded by the original Salt River canals that were constructed by the ancestral Sonoran Desert people, the Huhugam. These canals created a livelihood for the people and are still in use today. We acknowledge the modern indigenous people that inhabited this area, as well as their Sonoran Desert ancestors, the Huhugam. All right, and now we move on to our next item on the agenda. So we don't have any celebrations. Well,
I can lead in some celebrations. We don't have any school presentations tonight, but a couple celebrations. One thing that since our last meeting, we were going to have 30 members of our school staff attending the NIET's national conference. We did have 10 members attend that conference, and they were led by, it was the group from Clarendon that was delivering a professional development session for everyone. So real honor for them to present at a national conference, and they did just an absolutely amazing job. So congratulations to them. In that time that we were there in DC, we'll be talking about the impact of the cancellation of the TSL grant. That's going to come up in our agenda later. But there's been a lot of advocacy that's been happening, and that's something to celebrate, by members of our staff, starting with you. Our board president attended it was the NSBA Equity Conference, correct?
mm-hmm. Yes.
In DC, and you want to just kind of speak to the advocacy that you did when you were there?
Yeah, so when I was out there, it was before we found out about the loss of the grant. But I was able to schedule a meeting with Senator Mark Kelly's staff, as well as with Yasamin Ansari and her staff. And so spoke to them about our wonderful nutritious program here at Osborne and let them know a little information about the Blue Watermelon Project, our partnership, and the fresh foods that we get to serve our children here every day, and invited them to hopefully come out here and get to enjoy the fresh food as well, so they can see what a model should look like in other school districts, and they could hopefully support those. And also spoke about the scare of ICE coming to our schools, right? And so let them know that it was a priority for us to make sure that we kept our school district, everybody in it, completely safe. And then just, also advocated for ensuring that we have the proper funding. So teacher shortages around our state are such a huge issue. And so just wanted to make sure that they understood what was our priority here at the Osborne School District.
Some more advocacy that happened actually just during the break. During this past spring break, Corey had an opportunity to go to DC for a National Child Nutrition Conference, but also found himself on Capitol Hill speaking to the $1 billion United States Department of Agriculture cancellation of local foods for schools funding, which is something that we feel definitely in our campuses. We pride ourselves. You were just there talking about the importance of our child nutrition department, and access is a huge thing for us, making sure that our kids have access to delicious and nutritious foods, and Corey's able to provide so much of that through local funds. And knowing that those funds are being cut was a huge hit to him, yet he utilized his time there in DC to hit the Hill and advocate. So was there anything in particular, part of your message that you want to share with us, Corey? Putting you on the spot. But I'm sure you had to do it up on the hill, so we're less scary than those folks up on the hill.
Well, oh, thank you. I don't know.
Corey,
Come on up.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so when we were there, we were advocating as a group because of the local funds. There's also, a chance of like the CEP program, cuts there. And so really, we just wanted to talk to our representatives and tell them like, these are real stories about, what we're doing and what the impact that this is going to have not only on our students, but also on our local agriculture, our farmers and our ranchers. And so that was kind of my big message, because we do a lot of that here. And so, yeah.
Fantastic. And it's not just the advocacy, as this word, but it's telling our stories, telling how this impacts people. It impacts our community. It's going to impact farmers. It's going to impact all of those constituents that those members of Congress are out there to represent. So it's really important to use our time. When we were in DC, Felipe and I used an afternoon, and were able to speak to 6 different members from both chambers, the Senate and the House, Democrats and Republicans alike, and do advocacy for the continuation, the reinstating of the TSL grant that we're feeling impacts of, and are going to be taking some actions tonight due to those. So although it's negative news that we're hearing, it is a celebration that we're standing up. And that lots of folks are using different ways of advocating for our community.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Oh, and one last celebration. If you've driven past down Osborne and looked at the playgrounds, they're covered with shade, and that's a big celebration. So I'm sure the kids, it's kind of beautiful weather right now, but it's supposed to be in the 90s next week. So that shade's going to really come in handy. Mm-hmm. So that's a big celebration too.
Perfect. Such great things. I actually just drove past it, and I was hoping that one of these days I can go play in it because it looks like a lot of fun. It really does. So we'll move on to our consent agenda. Do we have a motion to pass the consent agenda?
I have a question about an item within the consent agenda for the job description for the Montessori TOSA. I saw that there was the minimum qualifications of a Bachelor of Arts degree. Is that a specific degree we absolutely need somebody to have a Bachelor of Arts? Or
No,
is it
bachelor's,
any bachelor's?
bachelor's degree, yes.
Okay, just making sure that we're including lots of different bachelor's degrees.
Yes. And there were minutes, I believe, that Lisa
That's
spoke
right.
to you about a correction to the minutes. If you want to just kind of read that so that, there will be an amendment to the any motion that's made.
So any motion that's made, the amendment will be in the area of the review and approval of ASBA recommended revisions to IHBR. It's read in the minutes first review, and it's going to be a second review. All right.
And the last thing on the personnel agenda, this is another revision that goes along with any motion. Just shows under resignations, Nathan Bliss is listed as a PE teacher at Solano School. He's the performing arts teacher. So the resignation still stands with the individual, just the position was listed incorrectly. Want to make sure that that's noted.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda with the amendments?
I motion to approve the consent agenda with amendments.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Perfect. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, motion carries. Next item on our agenda is call to the public. Do we have anybody for call to the public, Lisa?
No.
All right, so then we'll move on. We do not have a board presentation tonight. We do have the administrative reports. Do we have any questions, comments, concerns on those?
Nope.
All right, everything is looking good then. All right, so next item on the agenda is our information discussion items, FY24 School District Spending Report. Perfect, thank you.
I told Colleen we'd be getting to her quickly, but I think she's surprised how quickly we're getting to her.
Hey, I'm surprised too. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Good evening.
So I just wanted to quickly highlight a couple of the kind of key pieces within the report. I always encourage everyone, please go take a look at it. The link is there in the packet, as well as you can get to it directly from the Auditor General's website, because it's very interactive with the charts and tables, and you can then look at other districts and play around with their charts and tables as well. So, but just some of the key highlights for our district. Our overall classroom spending was just under 67%. And again, this is all for the 23-24 school year, so last school year. This is a percentage decrease of roughly 2% in comparison to this total spending from the year before. However, our total dollars spent on classroom instruction increased by $400 per student. And then it kind of moves through the comparable reports. It looks at how our district compares to our peer group average, as well as the state average. The district's classroom expenditures actually exceeded our peer group average by close to $1,600 per pupil, which is great. And you can also see as you kind of go through the entire chart, if you want to kind of scroll down, Brendan, there to kind of where I'm at, I'm just kind of going to move fairly quickly. Keep going. One more, I think it's one more down. There we go. This is where those comparable reports start. So it looks at it this is compared to last year. So just our district to our district 1 year over. And you can see that we increased spending in pretty much all of our areas compared to where we were in FY23. If you want to keep scrolling through there, Brendan, the next chart shows you that district to peer average and then district to state average. And you can see that we actually are spending more per pupil across like all of those categories in our peer averages as well as our state averages, which is great. As we keep moving through the next chart there, I just want to pause right here. This looks at operational pieces, and so it's always nice to kind of see how we are comparing to our peer. So the note there, based on whether we're comparable or we're high or very high, that's based on the peer average, not necessarily the state average for the peer group that we're in. And so it's always nice to know that we're kind of right there on target with our administrative costs, plant operations. One area that we do show high in is food service in our spending per meal, but that's a good thing. So we wouldn't want that to be low. That really speaks to that food quality and that sourcing locally, scratch cooking, smart labels, all of the wonderful things that we know that Corey and his department are doing. We want that to be a little higher because that really shows the quality of the food that we're producing through and serving to our kids. So, and then looking at transportation, this is an area to really celebrate, is that we had been running very high in both of these comparables in previous years, and so we're actually now in a very low in our spending per mile. And that's really through some refinement into our process on how we report our route miles. Both Sam and Debbie, the transportation supervisor, have undergone new training through the state on how to do that reporting. And so we're seeing now that playing out as though that training and that refinement to that process is now catching up in this FY24 reporting. So moving on through to average teacher salary, we can kind of, let's skip over decline enrollment. Let's just keep going. There we go. The average teacher salary increased by up to $63,000, and the next page down is going to show you that amount there, so you can see what it was in prior years, and then it also breaks out the net percentage of staff in those first 3 years. So we had 28% of our staff in their first 3 years of teaching last school year, and then keep going just a little bit farther. That shows that historical table of where we are in our average teacher salary compared to then the state average is the black dot plot point is the state average. And so where we are and where we made some pretty significant gains in the last couple years back up to getting really close to that state average. And of course we want to be above that. So are there any questions on the report? Okay, well, if you're looking for something fun to do and you want to look through all the interactive charts and mess with things, go for it. But yeah, and we'll have the links updated and posted on our website too. So
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing for everything you do. All right, now we're going to move on to our action items. So do we have, first up is recommendation to approve the 2025-2026 employee fringe benefit plans.
Good evening. That would be me. What was presented in the packet and what's available online? I understand that you all received an amendment. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
So I'll be going over that. The first 5 plan options that you see there are plans that we had last year. The first of which presented there is our copay plan. You'll see that there's 205 staff members on it. The second is our core plan. We have a PPO, and then we had the 1,600 high deductible and a 2,500 high deductible. This year, the 1,600 high deductible increased by about $50, so it's now $1,650. And then for the amendment that you all received, we've added a 5,000 high deductible health plan as an additional option to our staff. So now instead of having 5 healthcare plan options, there are 6. And I'll remind you that of the 6 that you all see on the amended version in front of you, 5 of them are free to staff. The single one that would potentially cost would be that core plan, which we currently only have 22 staff on that particular plan.
All right, thank you. Do we have any questions?
I was wondering, I know we've talked about this in the past, and I know that this is not just an Osborne issue, but when you look at the costs for children or adding any dependents, children, family, it's significant. Even our cheapest option is still 500. If you're just adding one dependent or children, it's still $511 a month, which is very high, especially for our classified staff. But for really anybody that's working in the district. So I see, low numbers of staff enrolled. Do you know, like, is that because the costs are so high? Do you get any feedback like that, or what? Yeah.
So we have a little bit of a combination for staff that are not enrolled in our plan. We have 290 total that are enrolled, and we have about, let's just say 350 approximately that are eligible for benefits. For those who are not enrolled, we do reach out to them annually. When open enrollment takes place, we do phone campaigns and so forth. And it can be a combination of a couple of different things. They may have health care elsewhere depending on their age. They may be covered through Medicare, etc. They may be covered on a family member's plan as well. For staff members who are a little bit younger, they could still potentially be covered under their parents' plan if they're under that age of 26. So those are some contributing factors that we know that impact the amount of staff who enroll in our plan. But typically, for some of those who do have larger families, it might be more advantageous for them to take advantage of medical benefits through potentially a partner's plan as well. So it's not just the cost as a contributing factor to potential barriers for them enrolling in our plans.
Sure. We know that as a state, when they did the teacher retention team, I know that's not the name, but when they analyzed that, like, benefit costs were a factor. And so I wonder how much of this too is, some of it that we're not capturing are people that leave the profession because they simply can't afford the benefits. And again, I know that that's not just an Osborne issue. This is something that districts across Arizona are facing, but it's tough as someone who, my husband's a teacher, so going to his plan is about, if I was in Osborne just looking at this, going to his plan in a different district wouldn't be that much better either. So I just wonder how many, of our staff leave because of this, and I'm not asking for the answer on that. I'm just
Actually, I was like, I'm the person who sees interviews. We don't have staff who've left within the last year or two that have attributed it to benefits specifically. But I'd also like to speak to that, being the person who goes to like our Kairos meetings and so forth. It's actually industry trend. Our district rate went up by 10% this year, and there are others within our particular pool who saw 18% increase, 15% increase. So it's a very unique time for healthcare benefits. I don't know that it's a thing that we have all the answers to, but it is definitely something that we are monitoring and determining if it's going to be advantageous to remain in the existing pool or potentially go out, quote, to market to see if we can, advocate for something different, and looking at and meeting vendors from other companies as well, which may not be the most popular thing, but it is something that's a portion of my job. So.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, any other questions?
Just a quick question, Dr. Woodland, and thank you for keeping an eye out there. I mean, 10% seems like quite a hike. I'm waiting, as it has not happened yet, but I'm waiting for the year where Kairos or somebody says costs are going down. It has not happened yet, and it just seems like it seems like another hit amongst many hits to the budget. I know it's $164,000 is the increased cost to cover those from the employer side, the district side, and 133,000 comes from M&O. Where's the other remaining amount, 50,000 or so, coming from?
I don't know.
Oh, it's okay.
Colleen?
Just,
Not all of our staff are funded from M&O. So those
Okay.
positions that are grant funded come from, 21st Century or other programs. Those costs of their benefits also come from those programs. So that just reflects the positions in M&O that have chosen to enroll, and then what that increase is for that cost.
that makes sense. Okay, thank you so much.
Any other questions for me?
All right, do we have a motion to approve the recommendation of the 2025-2026 employee fringe benefit plans?
So moved?
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, next item on our agenda is the approval of first review of ASBA policy revisions. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Well, I'll start off with some clarifications. My apologies in getting to you late the spreadsheet that I put together that has an explanation, policy by policy in terms of my recommendations. What you have in the packet is just the black line or red line through ASBA policies, and I didn't recommend all the things that ASBA did. So starting with policy A, which is the district mission and belief statement. That policy, never mind what you see from ASBA, what we currently have in our policy manual is probably from the strategic plan we did maybe in 2005. And so when we did our strategic plan in the 2019-20 school year and finished that work up in, I think it was in the 2020 school year, and we had our new mission, vision, values, we didn't make the change in the policy manual like we've had on our website, our strategic plan, but that mission, vision, values should have gone into policy A. That quite frankly, I didn't look at. It was the first time changing it, and I didn't realize that was something that was listed in policy, our mission, vision, and values. So we've been using those for the past 5 years. So what we will put into policy A now is not a reflection of the little bit of work that we've started this year on strategic planning, but rather going back and putting in the work that was done in 2020 so that our policy manual accurately reflects our mission, vision, and values.
Just to be clear on that, Dr. Robert, so on this A that we're looking at, the changes would reflect, this is even before I joined the board, the last time we went to strategic planning. So this would reflect what the work that was done, I don't know, 2019, 2020.
Correct.
And that what the community and the board at that time
Yes.
did. Okay.
So if you're looking at the red line, it says, the mission of the school district is, and, the goals of the district to accomplish this. We will replace all of this language. Instead of mission and beliefs, we would have our mission, our vision, and our core values. So the work that was in our done in our strategic plan.
Mission, vision, and core values will be on here.
Yeah.
on
Are you
A?
looking at page 102?
Yes.
Okay. So district mission and belief statement is what the policy is called, policy A. That will be replaced with basically if you go onto our webpage and go into our strategic plan, the mission, vision, and values is what's going to go into that.
Into A.
into A.
So it's not what is in blue on there now in the packet? Or it is? Are you saying it's going to be different? I'm confused.
The blue is our mission statement. That statement that's underneath it is not. No, it basically what is on our webpage for mission, vision, values is what's going to go into this policy.
And so when we motion it, we'll motion it with specifically saying that. Because it's the first reading, and so we'll have a second reading where we'll see that reflected, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Still a confused.
There's a hesitation, so speak up.
I'm just a little confused because it's just not, we're voting on something that's not in the packet. But it's a first read, and it's going to reflect that when the second read comes around, it will look like what it's going to look like. Okay. So I think I'm comfortable enough with it, with that one to move on.
So then just for clarity, is the blue, because the blue was obviously a change for Osborne, from Osborne. So why was it not, I guess why is it not changed with the mission, vision, and core values? Because I can see this is not like the boilerplate policy from ASBA. That's why I was just
Correct.
I just wanted
I didn't do that blue. I'm not sure where that comes from. So what?
okay.
But it won't, what we're voting on, an affirmative vote is not what's in blue here. An affirmative vote would be the mission, the vision, and the core values that we have.
Yeah, and that's what's reflected on the spreadsheet that I sent to you guys yesterday.
And that, just for clarity's sake for those at home, mission is the Osborne community advances the full potential of every child by developing emotional intelligence and academic excellence. And our vision is every child supported on their path to a thriving future. And our core values, of course, we talk about a lot: integrity, equity, joy, growth, and relationships.
And defined.
And defined. I won't
Yes.
take the time to read all that out loud, but
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so moving on, the second policy that had a lot of questions was in relation to policy AC. Policy AC had language from, hold on one second while I pull up. The language that we wrote into policy, I'm guessing about 7 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago, says the board is committed to a policy of non-discrimination in relation to race, color, religion, sex, age, national origin, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, and disability. This policy will prevail in all matters concerning staff members, students, the public, educational programs and services, and individuals with whom the board does business. That's the policy that we adopted about 7 years ago. Recommendation from ASBA is not to have all of that language in it. I'm not recommending that we change this policy. This is the inclusion of sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression was the values of this board, of this community that we wanted put into this non-discrimination and equal opportunity policy. There's nothing legally that requires that to be changed. However, if you look down at the bottom, so the language at the top, that is the Osborne language, I'm not recommending any changes from our policy that we had listed. If you look at the bottom to where it says cross-references, anything having to do, up a little bit, Brendan, right there in that section, it talks about cross-references. Any of these policies that have anything related to Title IX, we will have to change the language in Title IX to be reflected of the 2020 version of what Title IX was.
Just to be clear on that, Title IX didn't change. or maybe it did. I don't know. Did Congress change Title IX, or is this like an interpretation change?
You want to step up to this one, Emerald?
Because I don't. Yeah, my recollection is that Congress Title IX itself, which is a title in U.S. code, didn't change. But
Title IX coordinator here.
yes, thank you so much.
So, yes and no. So, what just happened under the new presidential administration is that our Title IX guidance reverted back to that of 2020. So, as a result, all the changes that we made in 2024, if I'm not mistaken, need to now be outwardly facing, reflected back what we had in 2020 to be in alignment.
Got it. So the guidance, the federal government, I don't know if it's EEOC or some federal agency now under the new administration, changed the way it's interpreting and implementing Title IX. Title IX itself didn't change.
We haven't had any, so I wouldn't be able to tell
Yeah,
you. But
I thought-
yes, it's essentially what we were told by our law firm
Yep.
is that the way that our policies are reflected needs to go back to how they were in 2020. In regards to how we would handle Title IX and all those things, we would still do our due diligence with staff and or student matters. So
Okay.
there's that.
Yeah, my understanding was there was some additions in 2024 to it, right?
And
And then
2024.
yeah,
and then they're
and-
like, nope, don't change
And
anything,
then
go back.
beginning of 2025, they're like those additions are gone. So
Okay.
that's what happened.
It's a really great way to put it.
Yeah.
And some of those additions had to deal with gender expression and gender identity,
Yes.
whereas our policy AC can still hold that. Our policies that speak to Title IX can no longer reflect that.
So do we need to remove that cross-reference?
We'll remove the cross references, and also you'll see the other listings of policies that are on this, that are there for you to approve. ACA, ACAR, ACAE, ACAA, ACAA-R. These are all related to Title IX. So all of those need to change and be reflective. So any of those that are listed in the cross references would also need to, we would take out the cross referencing because our policy AC, quite frankly, is going to not be in line with the
Yep.
Title IX policy specifically.
We're going to be more protecting and choose as a district to do a better job, in my opinion, protecting and not discriminating against folks than what the current guidance is of Title IX.
Correct. But if
Yeah.
someone is raising a Title IX complaint
Yeah.
based on something that's no longer listed, we can't address that as a Title IX complaint under those auspices. They will need to address that in a different manner.
Would that be like through a grievance?
Well, I mean, all of these would be, people would be grieving them. If there's a violation of policy that
Right.
someone feels, then yes.
Okay.
Either a grievance or, I mean, if someone's grieving, an administrative decision, but also it could be discipline for a staff member if they are, whereas we may not be able to make it a Title IX, there could be discipline on the basis of the protections within this district of policy AC.
Appreciate the recommendation not to change AC. That was something
Yes.
in my review, that's something I flagged of I like our AC. I don't want to change policy AC. So
Absolutely.
I agree with that recommendation.
So the recommendation is action, like if you're making a recommendation to approve the policies, it's actually based on the spreadsheet that I sent to you.
Can we approve the policies on the spreadsheet if it was not in the public document?
Well, we're making those revisions publicly now. We're stating them publicly now.
All right. Any more questions or discussion?
Not on that one, but just on a couple of other ones. ABA, parental, community involvement and education, and then ABAA, parental involvement. What's the reason for the changes on either of those?
Give me one quick second to just look into it.
Yeah, maybe we could just take them one by one. ABA, and
Brendan, can you go to ABA, please?
I'm looking at the board packet. It's
Right there.
105.
Thanks.
So it's so this is based on the ASBA recommendation, and it's what's reflected there in the red line.
I guess I still don't understand why ASBA is recommending that we change this. And maybe it was in the spreadsheet. There was an explanation. I just didn't see it.
and I think it's redundancy. I don't know. Maybe trying to just simplify the language of the. No, it wasn't in the spreadsheet. It was just simplified language.
Okay. And then I guess same question for ABAA. You know, it's, of course, I wasn't around when the original ABAA was passed, but presumably there was some thought and input into it. So I just, I don't understand what's prompting the change.
And in terms of when it was originally, I'm scrolling to it. Just give me one quick second. Yeah, so both of these, as you can see, they're both copyrighted policies. So we've made no changes to the policy. So in terms of when these policies were originally adopted, they were originally adopted as written by ASBA. So ASBA has gone in and made their modifications to original policies that they wrote, and so their copyrighted clean version are the shorter ones that are here.
I couldn't find ACE, the non-discrimination / equal opportunity. I know it's on the agenda. I couldn't find it in the packet. Maybe this could just be me, a me problem. Maybe if somebody could tell me what page it's on in the packet. But ACE and then ACAE are both on the agenda, but I couldn't find them in either one in the packet as I was going through it.
If it's not in the packet, it's probably a policy that we don't have, because both of those E's are exhibits.
Okay.
So it's the listed policies from ASBA, but if we don't have that exhibit, then
Okay. And then in the packet, there is open enrollment is policies on there, and I think it's something about the very last policy in the packet. It's like, I think it's a JFB. Are we updating? I didn't see that on the agenda. JFB, if I can, it'd be page 126 on the packet. JFB open enrollment. Is that something that we're being asked to update? I didn't see it on the agenda.
It's not on the spreadsheet.
So maybe that was just inadvertent on there. I just want to be clear.
it's probably inadvertent from ASBA because it's not one of the listed. There's
Okay.
This is one that, in my day job, we had to revise as well. I think if you look at D, the children of members of the armed forces, I believe they changed a law to require enrollment preference for those children. So I think it's related to a passage of a bill. So I believe it's a fairly minor change to the policy.
so we'd have to bring that for first reading next time.
Okay. We'll probably bring that for
Yeah.
first reading next
Yep,
time.
yep,
It's not on the agenda today. Okay.
Good catch. Thank you.
No, thanks. Just trying to line them up and make sure I read everything.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the first review of the ASBA policy revisions based on the recommendations from the spreadsheet?
I'll move to approve the policies as a first read with recommendations from the spreadsheet.
All right, do we have a second?
A second?
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the motion carries. Next item on the agenda we have here is the first review of return to work policy, GCQEA.
Hello again. So we are excited to present the initial draft of a return to work policy. This would be accessible for staff who have the necessary points required to retire through ASRS and would like to take advantage of it. If I had to provide you a snapshot, a return to work policy allows a staff member to make a portion of what their salary presently is. So if I use myself, for example, I may have 20 years left, but for the purpose of this example, this will be me. I currently make X amount of dollars. If I chose to take advantage of this policy, I would retire from Osborne officially and therefore begin drawing my pension at whatever percentage and whatever dollar amount. However, I could return to the district in my current position or potentially another, but let's just say in my current position, and I would be making up to 80% of what my current salary is. In that regard, I'm able to draw 100% of my pension, 80% of my salary, and work through a contracted agency for 1 year. And then if I choose to thereafter, I could return as a direct hire to the district. So there has financial implications as a benefit to the staff member as well as a benefit to the district. We're able to retain highly qualified people and not lose all that great knowledge that they may have when they choose to retire. And then there's also potential financial implications for the district as well.
I'm just going to play, if I can jump in real quick, just to play it through with a potential number. So let's say someone finishes with a $50,000 salary and they're retiring, and their retirement benefit, I don't know how it all works out. Let's say it's about $30,000. We'll just say 30,000, okay? That they're making 30,000 now in their retirement. So they're going to be collecting that. But they could come back into the same job that they were just doing in Osborne, making 80% of what they were making. So that's 40,000 now, 80% of that $50,000 salary. So if we're doing that same job, they'd be making $70,000 instead of 50. They'd be making the 30,000 they're getting from retirement, as well as the 40,000 that they're now getting from us. So it's a definite benefit for the individual that's choosing to do that because they're receiving more compensation. They're also getting a bit more because they're not paying into ASRS. So that 12% that they were having deducted from their salary that's not happening as well. So they're receiving something in terms of that higher salary. We're receiving something as a district because we have a position that's being filled, but the impact on our M&O budget is 80% rather than a 100% FTE. So there's savings in it for our district as well.
Dr. Woodland, the 80%, is that just for that 1 year where they're going through a contracted entity, I think you said? Or is that for year 2, 3, 4?
It would be definitely for the first year. And I believe the way the policy is written, thereafter they would be eligible to return to work with the district. And the percentage would therefore potentially be different. But again, it's in a draft format, so that could potentially change.
But what we have written in that draft policy is at 80%.
Michael is correct.
Okay, 80% for when they come back in year 2.
Yes, and if we offer any compensation increase, you were going to get to that.
No, well, you got it.
If there was any compensation increase, let's say there's a 2% raise, they could get that 2% raise. So now from what their ending salary was, now they're up to 82%. And if there's another raise that comes in another year, they could go up to 85%, if there was a 3% raise. But it would cap out once they hit 90% of their last salary.
Yeah. I'd love to see us increase that 80%, and just because if we're talking about in this scenario, it's somebody who's been in the district, probably somebody who's been in the district, certainly in teaching, but maybe probably in our district for like 20 years, if they've been in our district for 20 years, it means they're pretty awesome teacher probably, or pretty awesome at whatever they're doing, HR professional, and whatever they're doing, they're just phenomenal. And I think from a mental perspective, people don't usually want to take a pay cut and feel like, even though, that retirement has been earned, and certainly wouldn't be a net pay cut, but still it might feel like a pay cut. if you're saying, hey, we're coming back at 80%.
Mm-hmm.
So, especially because I think it'd be wonderful to retain these folks who have been with the district under this most likely for a while, have got the knowledge, been doing a great job for the school. I'd like to see us increase that 80% cap to like a 90%, to make it more attractive to bring folks back in.
I could definitely see that. I think that as an HR director for the district, when I've talked to my colleagues who have this in their district, some of them have it higher, but they didn't start it higher. So they definitely started and determined how and to what extent people were going to potentially be taking advantage of it and what that potential impact would be to their budgets prior to potentially increasing it. So again, as I rolled out all these potential ideas back in January when I presented on behalf of the department, I would like to see us seemingly get our feet wet with this particular policy. And then in the future, I think as our budget allows, then it will potentially be capacity to increase the percentage. Maybe it's 85, maybe it's 90. Some people, I won't say Gilbert, but it was Gilbert, they have like 100%. I'm
I
like,
think it's
they're a much
I
bigger
can see-
district than us though. So there is capacity,
Yeah.
but if we could just get
I
started.
can see why they
I
would
agree.
do that. But this is not right now. There's no mechanism right now for people to retire and
That
stay
is
with the
correct.
district. Okay, so this
There's
would be a new
no-
mechanism. Okay.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
And, with this too, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I guess to the other point though, with looking at it at 80%, if they chose not to do this, we'd still be paying them at 100%. And in the long run, the more time they have in the pension, the bigger their pension payment is going to be. So I understand that, in that short term, while they're working for Osborne and they're getting a pension, they're getting more money.
Mm-hmm.
But depending on, what that looks like in the long run, that could end up being a wash or, so I like your idea of, increasing that. It would be something to consider. I don't have you had anybody that's brought this up previously? How
The
how
policy
popular
is
do you think
only
it'd
in
be?
front of you now because someone asked about it, and I was like, "That's a great idea," but we don't currently have it, and that's why you have a draft. It was one of those. We listened to our staff and we try to take action expeditiously to address some of their concerns and their needs. So we had a couple of staff inquire about this program. Both were informed. Unfortunately, we don't have it at the time, but we happened to have a meeting with a partner agency that we already have an existing partnership with, and they made us aware that it's just something we would need to have a policy in order to enact with our existing agreement.
I think,
Is
go on.
Is the current process that someone would have to be retired away for a year and then they could come back? Would they have to come back as like a contract, or what's
That
the
wouldn't be technically a return to work. That's just what ASRS requires. You would have
Right.
to separate and come back at no more than 20 hours a week or stay away for exactly a year and then you could come back.
Okay.
But I wouldn't technically consider that an incentive at
okay.
all. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
So, I think part of it is looking at your local context too. We are, if you're thinking about being competitive with our, in terms of the retention, a lot of our districts right around us already have this in place. So, but one of the things that you're not hearing in the exit interviews, with individuals is that folks are leaving us for this reason so that they can do this. However, it's just yet another benefit that we can bring to the district. So it's not necessarily to stop the bleed of some folks that are leaving Osborne to go and exercise this elsewhere. It's just getting on board with offering this benefit. So that's a fantastic thing. I love that this is just being brought as a starting point. Looking at where everyone else is sitting within, Emerald priced this out at that, within our local context. So that 80% rate is what others are doing. As mentioned, we're looking to just get our feet wet with this and kind of see. I think it's a good opportunity at that 80% rate to, number one, see who's taking advantage of it. Number two, to see what kinds of savings I think we owe it to ourselves when we're doing something like this that has a mutually benefit to really explore what the benefit for us is as well. Looking at the benefit for the employee, it's there. You can see it, and if you increase the compensation, then it increases it more. but the more that's increased, the less the benefit that we went into this for the district of receiving some types of savings. And I'd like to see what is possible with savings. In this day of tight budgets and elimination of positions, any savings that we can get can save other things. We don't know, this is what we're doing in terms of M&O dollars, but we see what's happening with all of our title funds, all of those federal funds, and being able to have we don't know the number of folks that will do it, but to know that there's this type of savings that could be generated every year. I'd like a year or two of getting our feet wet. But if we start high, we're never going to move backwards. We're never going to go to 100% and move back to 90. Once you're at that high number, you're there. So I like the idea of starting at that 80% amount, just so we can experience what it is, what the benefit is, and if there is a greater, that it's not necessarily doing us this much, and we can extend that savings perhaps in, greater benefit out. But in this day of uncertainty with budgets, I'd like to explore as much savings as possible, since we're just in the getting our feet wet.
I mean, I will say, I know my dad used it when he was at the Isaac School District, and so he retired as an electrician, and I believe it was at 80% when he did it, and he enjoyed it. He absolutely enjoyed being able to go back and working and getting his pension at the same time. So I know that as a classified employee, he was really happy to be able to do that, because he felt like he still had more time he could work.
I would just say I agree with the policy. I think it's great to give the employees the option. I probably would agree with Ed. I'd really like to see the higher level on that, because I think the savings, like, despite their getting the pension, I feel like that's irrelevant. Like, that's what they've earned already. And so, but I'm not going to stand in the way of, all right, it's good. Like, could it be better? I think so, but I'm totally fine with, going the year and see a year or two, see how it works. Because you're right, we can't go the other way. That's not going to work. So I'd love to get it up higher eventually, but I'm not gonna say no to at least giving the employees this option.
And just for clarity, in terms of like the benefits, the district would no longer be paying for the pension, right? They're a component of that, and they would no longer
It pays what something is called the ACR during the time frame that they are taking advantage of this particular program. So there is a responsibility for the district to still contribute that, but the employee is no longer contributing the 12.27 or the 12% to ASRS, as they are now drawing their pension.
Okay, what would the districts? Do you have like a ballpark of what that?
The ACR, if I'm not mistaken, is 10%.
Okay.
It might increase. You never know with ASRS.
Versus the 12 whatever percent. Okay, and then the district would also not be paying for like health, dental, any of like those benefits.
That's correct. To my knowledge, and based on the agreement that we have with the partner agency, they offer benefits through the agency. So as the staff member would technically, on paper, be an employee of their organization for that first year, they would be able to take advantage of health insurance and so forth through that agency.
And it's really super important too for our employees, and they get this type of guidance from Human Resources to have their conversations with ASRS as they're preparing for retirement. If you're at 29 years of service, don't do this. Stick around for one more year within ASRS, get up to that next rate at 30 years. But once you hit that third, there are certain levels that you hit. Once you hit your 80 points in 30 years, it may be a long time before there's any increase, so it's very much worth it to double dip at that point. But if you're at 28 years and you plan on working for 3 more years, don't do it yet. Get your retirement contributions up as high as possible. But they would do that in sessions with ASRS as they're planning to retire.
Because Michael was hired prior to me, before 2011, so mine actually doesn't go according to points. Being hired after July 2011, mine goes according to the years of service. So I would have to go strictly according to 30 years of service. So I'll be 55 and I can't wait. But 20 years to go.
If I could this is more of a comment, but, and maybe you were already doing this, I don't know. But it would be really helpful, I think, for teachers, especially in the first few years, to understand not just the ASRS stuff, which I think can be really confusing. I've got a couple years in ASRS, still don't know how it works, but I should do a little more research into that. But just this policy, other policies that we've been talking about, we already have on the books. Just making sure that our teachers, especially our young ones and staff, know how it works and know that having a career at Osborne is really good for us, certainly for them as well, and to be able to have that training to see the long-term vision, because I feel like sometimes, especially young teachers, can feel like this ASRS thing is so intangible that they're not really thinking about it. And so whatever we can do to get people thinking about a long-term career at Osborne would be awesome.
For sure. And it's actually really cool. The Arizona Teacher Residency Program, they've actually included that in their outreach to young folks getting in. Like, what are the benefits of doing this? You know, we'll pay for your master's, this, and you enter this thing called a pension plan. And here's what it is. You know, learning what that means, you know, from a young age, that the days of pensions, like I was raised on, you know, I've told the story before, but that was one thing my dad always told me was like, be a doctor. Okay, if you're not going to be a doctor, make sure your check's signed by the county, you know, because of the benefits, from health benefits that you're feeling right now to the long-term benefits. And, you know, yeah.
Cool.
All right. Do we have any other questions, comments? All right. Do we have a motion?
So moved?
Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you so much for all your work on this.
Dr.
Really
Woodman.
appreciate it. All right, and next item on the agenda is the second review and approval of policy JBA, the safe learning environment.
I'll let you take it. For you and our board clerk worked so hard at putting this policy together, so there's no need for me to explain your work, so take it.
Do you want to start?
Sure. Well, I know that we've already met about this, but we, as the governing board for the Osborne School District, want to make sure that our staff and students and our families feel safe. There's been a lot of changes with the new administration that has come in, with the recent election. And so this policy really came out of making sure that our staff have the tools so that if local law enforcement or ICE or any sort of agency was to come on school property and want to do something regarding immigration, that we really have the tools to make sure that our students are safe and that they don't have fear when they come to school, that someone might come take them or harm them or their families.
I will say that I was a student when SB 1070 passed. I was in college, and I know I heard from some younger friends just a fear. And there's a particular friend of mine. She was at ASU at the time, and she did not have a legal status, so she had to figure out her living situation at the end of the day, because her family, her mom with her younger siblings who were in high school and elementary school, moved out of state because of that fear. And so this is why it was such a priority for Board Member Greenberg and I to really, and for the rest of the board, but obviously we didn't want to break quorum. And so we met up and really went through what we wanted to see. A lot of this was already in separate policies, because Osborne is just such an amazing school district that really reinforces the inclusivity of all. But we wanted to ensure that we really stated safe learning environment for everyone. And so we're really happy to have been able to put this together. We're so thankful of our council to be able to look over and ensure that we're doing everything according to what's supposed to happen. And just really thankful for the support of everyone on the board and you know, Dr. Robert for just letting us do this for our district and our community. So, do we have any questions or comments?
I did have one. So in 10 and 5, and I remember specifically, I think we had talked about 10. We did want to include like gender identity, sexual orientation within that, but it looks like in here in number 5 that's redlined, and then in number 10 only national origin, ethnicity, race, or religion is included.
Is in the 5, does it go under the other protected class or characteristics?
I'm sorry, can you say that last bit?
So page 145.
Yeah.
So they crossed out all of the other protected class or characteristics.
Oh, yes.
Is it all under that blue?
If you want that red line removed, then let's state it now and approve it as such.
I would prefer to
Yeah.
state it as such because I don't know the way things are going. I'm not sure if those protected classes are changed later
I
on.
agree. That's
Yep.
where my concern lies too. So I would like what is in the red line to be included.
I agree.
Agreed.
And then you mentioned a second place. Can you tell me
yes.
the second place?
10,
Yes, I see it there.
it's same thing. It's just only has national origin, ethnicity, race, or religion. So I'd want what is up in 5 to also be included in 10.
Yes. So you'll,
Those consistent with
however you state your motion, Lisa will make those changes when submitting to ASBA.
Perfect.
I agree.
And this is our second reading, so this would make it, Lisa will be on this tomorrow in terms of putting this into effect.
Just want to say thank you so much for taking the lead on this. This is very important. Like you said, so much of this is in policy already, but it is important to me to have this in one place, especially now I've heard the questions. I've talked to our counselors and our folks in the schools, and this is really important to have. So I really appreciate Board Member Greenberg and Board Member Ramos for taking the lead on it and making sure we do this.
Thank you. All right. Do we have a motion to approve policy JBA safe learning environment with the amendments that we just requested?
I'll move to approve.
Second?
Perfect. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Opposed? All right. Motion carries.
I do want to thank Board Member Ramos for her time and input on this. This was, something we had been talking about, and I'm glad to finally bring it to you all. So thank you.
No, thank you. All right. So we had some good news there. Now we're going to move on to the reduction in force of master teacher positions.
Unfortunately, as a reduction or as a cancellation of our teacher and school leaders grant, there are certain positions that were written into the grant that we've exhausted conversations about affordability of positions. 5.5 master teachers of 11.5 in the district no longer fit within our Title I budget. That Title I budget that's normally released in its initial appropriation at 90%, it's only coming in at 80%. So we're, of the 5.5 master teacher positions that we need to fill or move, 1.5 are able to be filled in different capacities, which leads us to a need for a reduction in force of 4 master teacher positions for the 25-26 school year.
Do we have any questions?
Yes, I've got a couple of questions. The Title I piece that you mentioned, Dr. Robert, and if you could help me understand that, why? I know you mentioned used to come in at 90%, now it's coming in at 80%. That's a significant cut to us. Who made that decision to go from 90% to 80%?
That's
that,
what the Arizona Department of Education releases to the school district.
okay. So that was a superintendent of public instruction decision
It's
to
a,
reduce
it's a conservative allocation based on the uncertainty of what's happening at the federal level.
And what, I guess, in years past, when we got the 90%, do we get the other 10% later?
We do
Okay.
normally around November. Have we gotten it this year? No, we still haven't gotten it for this year.
Who's got our money? So, to be blunt, and because we need that money.
So that's the reason that that it's at that 80% level is they're not 'cause you can't take that money back. So out of that uncertainty of what's happening at the federal level, only 80% is being released to us now.
And I don't understand our state superintendent on a lot of things, and maybe this is just one of those things that is a mystery to me. But is it the 80% because our state superintendent thinks that 20% is going to get clawed back somehow? Is that the thought?
I would think so, yeah.
The 10% that we're missing, that we normally would have gotten by now in the school year, that we still don't have, can we ask for that or send a letter or something? I mean, every dollar, especially right now, really
Colleen, you want to
counts.
address this one? I mean,
I know it's nobody in this room's fault, but I just think that it's just very odd that we haven't gotten that money yet, and the money's in some account somewhere, and we need that money.
Evening.
Hi.
So typically what happens for us is ADE allocates funds to us at the beginning of March based on a forecasted amount that they're expected to get. And then in past years, the last few years though, in past years, we would get the additional 10% once they received their funds, and then they dispersed that 10%, which normally came out in November. Last year, we received it right around February, and then this year, we have yet to receive it. And that's not just our district, that's across the state. And then just about a month ago, attended a meeting where ADE had shared that based on guidance that they had received at the federal level, that their allocations would be decreasing. And so they were gonna have that forecasted preemptive allocation to us across the state to be 20% less.
The money, and this is it kind of goes through the AZ Prime as well, but at least on the Title I funds, the money's been allocated by Congress to our state Department of Education. They're just releasing 80% of it to us, and they're sitting on the other 20%.
So typically what happens is when we get, so normally the allocations are posted into a system, a grant system, at the beginning of March. And they post based on what they feel that they'll receive. So they haven't necessarily received that money. This year so far, they have projected that they would be posting our preemptive allocation around the beginning of April, but we haven't received any further guidance.
Okay.
Is some of that because it's forward funded? And so, okay.
So they don't technically have the funds
Okay.
sitting somewhere.
Okay. Thank you for that. And I appreciate everything you're doing, and I appreciate everything you're doing to get these grants as well. And I'm torn up about, I've had some time to process it, and I'm still going through the stages of grief with this NIET grant, because we all celebrated that. And all of that was due to your hard work, Dr. Bear's hard work, so many people in this room's hard work to get that grant. And to have that rug pulled out from under us, it's a gut punch, because I look at these positions that are being funded by it, and I see the faces of the people who I know are in our schools who are integral to these kids' education. Especially in this school year, we don't have a lot of extra, hands and bodies in our schools, to cover all of the things that need to be covered. And so I understand we have to do this. It's because we've been put in this situation, but it doesn't change the fact that I'm really just burnt up that we've gotten this blindsided in this way after all the work that everybody put in to getting that money. So I guess my question or my hope is that if we could do everything we possibly can do to fight these things, even when it looks bleak, whatever there is to do, I would love to do it because it really burns me up.
Thank you for your support.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other questions? All right, do we have a motion to approve the reduction in force of master teacher positions?
I'll
I'll
move
make a
to
mo-
approve.
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? All right, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the reduction in force of the Director of Leadership and School Improvement position.
For the same reasons, we don't just have teaching positions in this grant. We do have one administrative position, which is the Director of Leadership and School Improvement. Whereas we explored the potentials of moving some teaching positions or saving some teaching positions in title funds. We do not have the funds for the continuation of this administrative position, which leads us to a request of the board, a reduction in force of this district leadership position.
All right, do we have any questions?
No questions, just grieving. And I apologize because I grieve through vocally. But I remember when I got the call from Dr. Robert saying, we've got this money for this position, and how elated I was, and then how upset I was to then find out randomly and for no reason, certainly no good reason, that this money was being taken from us. We are lean as a district. We are lean. And I've seen it become leaner, and now it's becoming leaner still. And so I just implore anybody who's out there to advocate for more funding from the federal level, certainly, and from the state level, because it is difficult, I think, very difficult to run schools. We're going to do a great job at it, but it's very difficult to just keep getting cut and cut and cut, and to do right by our kids. It is very difficult to do it. I've got to vote for this. I feel like it's the right thing to do, but I'm not. Doesn't mean I'm happy about it.
I'll echo the sentiments of Board Member Hermes. These positions, the master teacher positions, the Director of Leadership and School Improvement positions, keep teachers in Osborne. One of the most important things that I've had as a teacher is mentorship. Mentorship has kept me in the profession. And it feels like this district that I love with my whole heart, we are doing everything right. We are teaching kids, we are supporting kids, we love kids. And we do the same with our staff. We mentor our staff, we love our staff, and we want to keep them here in Osborne, and it just feels like we got cut at the kneecaps. We are doing all the right things. Our schools are on the up and up. We have 3 A+ schools of excellence in the last 2 years. And to have to reduce these positions because somebody in Washington decided that these positions are not important, I guarantee they don't even know these grants they cut. They looked at a spreadsheet and cut this grant from us. And it hurts. It hurts because we know these people and we know the love and dedication that they pour into our communities. And I'm heartbroken. So from the bottom of my heart, if you are somebody who is riffed tonight, I'm sorry. This is not okay. It's not okay that folks in Washington just look at some computer and say, we're getting rid of these things. When we're actual people in this district who care about kids and are doing right by kids, it's just so unfair. And if you're somebody who is losing your job today, I'm sorry.
taking the step of formalizing these roles is really important. 31 years ago, I was a floundering rookie teacher that really could have used mentorship, and someone just stepped outside of their regular realm and just took me under their wing and didn't let me drop out, didn't let me quit after that first year. I was very fortunate for that. In 12 years of teaching, I never had an instructional coach. The fact that we formalize this work and prioritize this work of being there to support not just our teachers that are just coming in and floundering, maybe at the beginning of their career, but teachers that are well experienced, that grow through thought partnership and coaching and sharing of strategies and saying, hey, I'm doing this. Can you come in and take a look and let me know how I'm doing, or maybe let's do it side by side. I love that these structures that we have in place that we've formalized with positions. And as much as you hate having to make a vote tonight, I do not enjoy bringing the vote for you to have to make.
I know it's really hard, and obviously the work that we do up here is not everything's going to be positive news. It sucks, and I know that, thank you, Board Member Hermes, for connecting us to the Attorney General listening session. And so I know that Dr. Robert, Felipe, and myself were there and spoke, advocating for the reversal of the the grant being taken away. And so we're hopeful. I mean, I know that for right now we have to make this decision, but we will keep advocating and fighting because it's very unfair. So do we have a motion to approve the reduction in force of the Director of Leadership and School Improvement?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. And we don't have anything right now for board development. We're taking a little break after the book that we read. And so hopefully this summer we'll come back with another book.
And one thing that we've talked about too, that's a book that we read on our own, and then we have this discussion, but we're in front of people and there are people that are watching. So one thing that we've been discussing is maybe coming up with something shorter, articles, videos that we can put online. So those, anyone that's here, those that are watching at home can access the information that we're talking about and be involved, in the discussion in that way too, as well as looking at other texts as well that we can look at for next school year.
And then we're moving on to reflections and feedback on the meeting. So we'll start with Board Member Thompson.
All right, thank you. I'd just like to echo the sentiment on those cuts. That's something that we never want to do, but the reality is the budget is the budget, and if we can complain about being underfunded from the state, which is very accurate, but at the end of the day, we got to make those decisions. So unfortunately, we got to do that. But on the positive note, I really would like to applaud our passing of the safe learning policy. I really think that was very important, and really appreciate all the work that everyone put into that.
Thank you so much. Board Member Ford.
Thank you. I wanted to also echo the sentiments of our approval of JBA, our Safe Learning Environment, and just wanted to applaud the work of President Ramos and Clerk Greenberg. Thank you for your hard work and dedication and thoughtfulness for our students and for our staff. And it's Women's History Month, and thank you to the read alouds on the Osborne social medias. I love those so much, and I'm looking at a sea of women here in this room. And anybody who's been in education knows that education's a predominantly female workforce. And so I just wanted to thank all the incredible women that work really hard in this district. And to our president and clerk, thank you for everything you do.
Thank you so much. Board Member Hermes.
Just also want to say appreciate all the hard work on our safe learning environment policy. I really appreciate that and the other policies we have that are a unique reflection of our values. And, you know, given the cuts that we're seeing and are being imposed upon us, this is also getting into state budget season. And so just want to implore our state lawmakers out there, especially this year, especially in light of what we've gone through just in the past 4 years, and now the last 2 months in terms of cuts, it's more important than ever to increase funding for our school district, because I see how important these positions were that we just riffed, and how not having them next year will add stress on folks, principals, on teachers, on everything. And so just not having those additional hands in the school district. And I was a few minutes late today because went to an AASA ASA test, because I've got a third grader. So I went to ASA test meeting about that. And, you know, who was helping to put that together? Our master teachers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the same people that or some of the same people that won't have next year. So those responsibilities are going to have to go elsewhere. And so we're going to have to continue to somehow get creative and also find more money, hopefully from our state, to get those resources that we need to fill those gaps. We're going to do it, because that's what we always do, is find a way, but it's going to be tough.
Thank you so much. Clerk Greenberg.
I want to thank my fellow board members for passing the safe learning environment policy. It's something that, you know, while it's the reason we initially came up with that policy has come from recent things, that policy really protects students in a variety of ways and reinforces many of the policies and the values that we already had here in Osborne. So I'm really thankful that, you know, I sit up here with a team that really values our students, families, and staff. You know, again, as everyone else has said, this has been one of the most uplifting meetings that I've had, but also one of the hardest with our RIFs. I mean, I think of, you know, a position that I currently serve in as a TOA, and you know, that those roles are really, really important. And when we have such a lean budget and such uncertainty, we don't know, you know, what kind of supports that we can have, even when they're there. We know that we need to have these supports, but we don't necessarily know if we have the support from our federal, our state, and our state government. We know we have the local support, but we have our support here. And I think as a board member, it's one of the hardest things I look at. You know, when we looked at our Auditor General report, there were some really great things in there, but when I look at those salaries, I think, wow, our staff deserves so much more. And we do a really great job with a little that we get in our district, but it's still not enough. And as a board member, it is hard to sit here and be like, yep, that's what we have to do because of some decisions somebody who knows where in some office in some building that may get shut down at some point, you know, was making. So I'm hopeful that, you know, with the appeal, that maybe those dollars will come back to our school district. And I'm also, you know, I'm hoping for those that were RIFed, if you know, that is truly what has to happen and we can't, you know, get those funds back to continue those positions. I hope you stay with Osborne. I hope that we can find something that's a great fit for you. Because we need high quality people to stay here and want to be here. And outside of the budgeting, it's a scary time, I think, to be in public education. And so it's like all these things coming at all of us, but especially for those that have been riffed, I think that can feel really, really heavy. So I'm sorry to those that have been riffed today, but I hope that you'll continue to do, one, what's best for you, but two, that if it feels right, that you'll stick with public education and serve our students and families.
Thank you. My reflection, so thank you all for the support with the JBA Safe Learning Environment, and by all I mean everyone in this room and in our community. And what I want to reflect on is the conversation we had when we started about the advocacy work. And so seeing Dr. Robert at Capitol Hill running around, those buildings are far, by the way. Seeing Corey's picture up at Capitol Hill, myself being able to be there, and on my personal social media, I reflected saying that baby Violetta never imagined that she would be in those spaces, right? I mean, my parents are immigrants, truly never imagined that I would be called President Ramos. So, but just wanting to say that we're going to continue advocating and putting a call to everyone too, that our legislators are having listening sessions. Just tonight, Congresswoman Ansari is having a listening session. So if there are those opportunities to get out there and advocate, we are all constituents. We all voted for these folks who can advocate for us. So let's all take that opportunity to continue fighting for our district. I know I am committed to continue this fight. At my day job, next week we'll be meeting with the staff of Senator now, Senator Gallego, so that we can advocate for education. So that's my personal reflection for the night. Dr. Robert?
So I share all the comments already made. 1 month ago, Dr. Woodland was up here talking about the work that she's doing within the district, kind of vision, her thoughts for what we can offer in the future within Osborne. And here 1 month later, she's brought a policy that she had been working on the whole time that you approved tonight that offers another benefit to Osborne employees. And there's more to come. That was not just a dreaming session of Dr. Woodland's. It's thinking about what she's already putting efforts into. So I'm really proud to be able to do that and grateful for her work, and that we've got someone in that position that has vision.
Perfect. Any future agenda items? Board Member Thompson? Board Member Ford?
None for me.
Board Member Hermes?
None for me.
Clerk Greenberg?
Nothing. No, none for me.
And nothing for me either. All right. This meeting is officially adjourned at 6:59 p.m.